Welcome. We're here.
We are back.
We are back.
We are back.
This is episode 153 of the Herpetoculture Podcast. I am Justin Smith of Palmetto Coast Exotics.
And I am Jacob Bratz of Long Leaf Reptilia.
Herpetology.
Herpetology.
Longleaf herpetology. This episode is brought to you by BlackBoxCages.com. Give them send them a message, like them, Facebook, Instagram. Check out their website. If you need a new rack, you need a new cage, please hit them up.
Very responsive, very nice people. Some of the best in the business, bar none.
Damn Skippy. And if you're going to be in the Marietta, Georgia region the weekend of March 12th and 13th, they will be vending the Show Me Snake show, and we will be there hanging out. So
probably at that booth a lot.
That's going to be a good time to get your hands on some of their stuff.
Yep, and feel those buttery smooth chubs sliding in and out of those racks.
Slicker than grease.
Slicker than grease, boy.
So check them out. And then Steve Snakeswear and his Venom hot sauce. Check him out too. Get you some hot sauce. You're helping him with public education, outreach, relocation, rehabilitation, relocation. Did I say relocation? You don't even know. You ain't even paying attention to me.
Yeah.
So
Sorry,
you're helping Steve out.
Distracted.
If you get his hot sauce, you're helping him out with all the stuff he's doing. And then if you want to see the reviews for his whole line of hot sauces, you can go and check out Jeff and Kendra at Reptile News Radio. They've been doing some videos with his stuff.
And they're doing a giveaway of his hot sauce soon
at
the show or
I think
it was at the reptile show, yeah.
I don't remember which one exactly. It might be that Pac Northwest show.
Yeah, the one that they vend all the time.
Yes.
So yeah, if you're going to be at that show, check that out. Put in for the raffle. Try to get you some hot sauce. It's the best of the best. Me
and Jake are matching with our Nephrurus Initiative
yes.
shirts, which is completely unplanned. But
shameless plug to Phil Wolf, the other part of the Herpetoculture Network. It's my man. It's our dog. Obviously, we didn't even plan this. We're just that cool.
But this week, we are joined once again. I'm actually going back right now and looking through episodes.
Yeah, I was going to ask. I feel like Khai was our third guest. I think he was definitely the first 5. I don't remember.
I'm digging as we speak.
It's been definitely at least a couple years.
Oh yeah.
It's been you were one of our first guests, definitely.
That was episode.
I think it was when I first moved here. To Southern California, and I think I did a podcast either with you guys while I was here or while I was up north. I can't remember, but it was just during the transitional move. Yeah, and I've only been here for a couple years now, maybe 2 to 3 years max. So
yeah, I gotcha. No, it was right at 3 years ago, I think.
Yeah,
thereabouts.
That goes by fast.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we were going through people, and I wanted to have some people back on, just to have like updates and stuff. And I thought of you, and I was like, man, we need to get Khai back on here. That was a good episode. He works a lot of cool stuff. You got a lot of new shit happening. So
yes, a lot has changed since then.
Yeah, a lot has gone into work. More so, I guess when we were first getting onto that first podcast. I was just starting off with everything, whether it was like just hatching out my first clutch, of mangroves.
Yep.
I wasn't even hatching out Kimberleys yet. The grasshopper stuff, basically everything's taken off. And so we'll probably get into a little bit of everything today.
Yeah, for sure.
So it was January 4th of 2019.
January 4th of 2019. Okay, so yeah, it's been over
22.
It's been over 3 years.
Yes.
Wow, that's awesome.
Time goes by, man.
Yeah, man, that's crazy. That blows my mind. I can't believe we'd be having you on again 3 years later. If you'd have told me that 3 years ago, I'd be like, I don't know about that.
I can't believe that I have had quite a bit of success in that time too.
Yeah, man, I've been following you ever since that episode, and man, you've just been banging and growing and pumping cool stuff out.
Yeah.
So I guess we can jump on into this. So let's start with our updates on your mangroves, because I know that was kind of your main project,
Yeah.
when we first had that episode. So comparatively now, like you just mentioned, you were working on like your first clutch. Where has that gone in the last 3
Um,
years?
I'm probably about 7 or 8 clutches in now that are
Nice.
fully hatched. To be honest, some clutches basically didn't do too well
Mhm.
initially. It'll be like a parthenogenic clutch, or clutch would only have like a, a fraction of them hatch out, so not 100% hatch rate. I've been
Gotcha.
getting better hatch rates, but still not like what I want, but better than not getting anything at all. So
Right. Are you tweaking like how you incubate to try and get better hatch rates, or do you think it's just the
um
animals?
I think it's a little bit of both. I've been also tweaking the incubation methods as well.
Mhm.
Like I got a new incubator in the time frame.
Mhm.
I went from like a little homemade mini fridge
Mhm.
to I now have like sea serpents
Yeah.
Nice.
that 2 foot, or it's like probably waist high, that one.
Nice.
And getting to learn that one, it's a little bit different. I've never used the fan before. So I'm using a fan now. I don't know if it's causing ill effect, but I'm having decent hatch rates, so not bad at all. Most of
Good.
the stuff is just about hatching. Occasionally there's the 1 or 2 egg, or part of a clutch that just doesn't go the distance, and I'm
Hmm.
okay with that.
Yeah, that's certainly not uncommon in reptile breeding.
Yeah,
That's for sure. I think in both clutches of carpets I hatched, I had at least 2 bad eggs. If not, maybe one on my last one, two on my first. And
yeah. So
yeah, it's a pretty common thing.
I won't even really chalk it up as a loss. It's just all right. It's just part of the game, right? So yeah,
Yeah,
that's where
yeah,
I'm
for
at
sure.
now. I guess I'm now into my third or fourth different type of mangrove monitor that I've hatched. So the very
Oh
first one was
wow.
very first one was Solomon Island. The next one was some Indonesian ones, and then I crossed the Indonesian one with the Kai Island one. That was my third one. And then I have now recently just hatched out one Kai Island monitor. And basically, they're just the new ones that I'm working with now are basically named after Michael Cole of Ballroom Pythons,
Mm,
right? And basically he helped facilitate bringing these animals in, and at the same time work on their studies over on the islands and everything like that with the people there. um, I once saw these animals just through pictures um, that John at Dragness shared from Sim Container, right? And he
mhm.
shared these pictures like when I was like 12 or 13 years old, and I knew then, like, dang, those are really gorgeous animals,
Right.
but they weren't available um, until I think a couple years ago at Pomona. Um, People were telling me that Michael had some females for sale, and that's my main focus of the whole aspect of what's going on here is
Yeah.
that project. But I still have regular mangroves doing their biz. I don't have any Indonesians anymore, just because they got way too big for what I
Hmm.
wanted to keep. Um, and then I still have the Kimberly Rocks going, but the Kai Island project and Varanus coli is what they're called, or Coles monitors. Um, they're my main project. I have quite a few of those. I basically bought all the ones that I found available, and now I have maybe 8 or 9 animals,
Oh
give or
wow.
take. Yeah,
Nice.
at least 7 or 8. I have to like kind of go through. Some are mutts, so one or two of them are mutts, and the rest are all pures.
You think they
So
were crossed with other like localities?
oh no, I personally bred the ones that I
Oh,
got.
Okay,
okay.
I
I
got
got
you.
you.
Mutts, yeah. So um, I at the time I just had monitors, right? Just mangroves, and
Hmm.
I was
Mhm.
willing to learn them whichever way. So I thought all of them were basically compatible. So I kind of just started mixing them, mixed localities. They looked way different, but if they were going to breed, they bred, and then I actually got some eggs out of this breeding one time, and so I got to keep a couple of the babies, and then whichever ones I sold to, I kind of watched them be raised by friends and stuff like that.
Right.
Now, the where this project has gone to now, like the whole mangrove thing, right? Like I have had parthenogenic stuff, right? So that's one aspect of the hatching that I'm doing here. They're not even breeding; they're just laying fertile eggs without
Oh, wow.
breeding.
Right.
And then I've taken the ones that I've raised from those parthenogenic clutches and bred them back to females.
Mm-hmm.
So all of the ones that I've been able to hatch out parthenogenically have been males, raised up, bred back, and then I've been able to sell those offspring. So like I just hatched some out in like October or something like that, right? And so I still have some of those babies that are waiting for the weather to warm up to ship off. And then I've done the crossing of Indonesian and Khai Island stuff. I'm taking the 50%, trying to breed those back to peers to make 75%, make a even better looking animal. Now these are kind of like my line, right?
Mm-hmm.
Stuff that doesn't really exist yet, obviously, just because it's so new. And then you're not going to be able to copy this without having my animals,
Right.
So now there's that part, which to make 75%ers. At one point, I only have one male, right? And so he's very hard to breed just because he's so mean.
Oh,
And he will breed big females that will fight him back, right? And they kind of, he can't push them around so much.
Yeah, they keep him in
Right.
check.
Right? But all the little girls, he's kind of beating them up really bad, and all the little ones are the pure ones.
Oh, yeah.
That's where making the 75%ers and then maybe utilizing those to breed to some of the pure females to make 100% through using an Indonesian as the carrier. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so hopefully I'll have some decent looking animals. Possibly there'll still be just my line though. I do have now more males. I have availability to 2 more males. I have one he just got here like 3-4 days ago.
Okay.
But then I have another one that you guys probably know him, Aubrey from damn, I forget, but he breeds retics. I forget his I think it's like A and B exotics or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, he's in this whole group effort. Me, Michael, and Aubrey. We're basically carrying all these animals that we're trying to solidify in the United States and basically get them situated where we can have more successful clutches and all that stuff like that. I've been only the one that's successfully been able to even cohabitate them, but for the most part, I'm kind of leading within this project right now. Everybody else just has the animals, getting somewhat of more infertile clutches or actually killing some of the males as well. So it's been a real tough project. Even myself, like I've had the current male that I have that's pure. They fight a lot. He's bitten off a couple tails, like the very tips and stuff like that. He's maimed a couple of them. So it's not an easy project at all.
Right.
I wish I was doing like Argus monitors or Ackies or something that wasn't so aggressive towards each other. But these guys are they're pretty nuts when it comes to courting and breeding. I basically have to land it right on ovulation or I don't get no play at all. Yeah,
Wow.
so that's the very tough part. And if I, basically misjudge it by a few days, it can be detrimental to the female. Miss some, and then I miss the clutch. Right? So,
Right.
Yeah.
How do you keep track of it? Like, how are you able to sort of nail it down in terms of regular?
Yeah, so I paid attention to behavior mostly, right? And I do have a ultrasound that I bought a year ago. I don't know how to use that well. It's not that it's hard. It's juggling a monitor.
Yeah,
I can only imagine. That's
juggling the probe, and then you have to press buttons as well. So I essentially had to have 3 sets of hands.
Mhm.
I really can be the one that's only holding the animal, other than I have to have another person here that's good with monitors. But if it's only me, it's me holding the monitor, the petroleum jelly stuff, and then my lady
Mhm.
holding the probe and the actual monitor that we got, right. And so that juggle alone is quite difficult. So that, and then learning how to read what we're looking at on the thing, was kind of hard to see follicles, but that's what I was hoping to do, right. Bought the ultrasound, didn't really go as I planned. I still have it. I'm still working with it a little bit here and there as I go, as I think I need it, and during the situation I'll see if I can see anything, but it's hard to make out stuff. So I
Right.
think I have the wrong probe. Maybe my probe is more meant for like little hamsters and rats.
Yeah.
Yeah, not for like not for a monitor lizard or more medium animal,
Right. And I've seen some of those, and they, if you really got to know what you're looking at on those
Yeah,
things to
yeah,
tell exactly what it is.
right. Yeah, so
But yeah.
I'm really just waiting for the monitors to either get this really pear shaped right, and then I obviously haven't been feeding them a ton, and the male is going to be kind of honor. Man, I had a male break through the barrier just to get to the other side to breed with the female.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So I mean, luckily he didn't harm her at all, which is weird, right? A week. This is how crazy it is. A week prior to him breaking through and breeding, he bit off 3 inches of her tail.
Oh my.
Jeez.
Right, and I'm like, wow, that's pleasant, like you're a killer, but a lover at the same time.
Yeah, he was just so
Yeah.
Yeah,
exhausted from busting through the barrier that he was like, you know what? Let's make it
yeah.
cordial this time.
So are they naturally aggressive breeders, or are they just aggressive
I think they're
in general?
solo animals for sure.
Mhm.
Right. Just
They don't.
until it's
Yeah,
ready breeding season, they come together for that one time,
Like
then they
king snakes.
right.
split. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wait for them to have this like pear shaped, and then also kind of for them to go off food a bit. If they kind of refusing food and they don't look gravid, they're likely going through the beginning stages of the cycle,
Mhm.
and then I'll introduce him slightly right after that, right?
So do
And
you introduce the male and watch them like for the first few minutes? If it's not
yeah,
going well, just pull them out
The
right away.
referee.
But if
I,
it is going well at first, is it okay? Leave them alone, or do you sit there and watch them till it's done?
no, I sit there and I watch them, and I'm home for 24 48 hours. Like I gotta have that. All right, he's cool, they're cool for 10 minutes, but what if
That could
she
change at
like,
any moment.
yeah, she
Right.
crawls on him wrong, he doesn't like it, and then bam, I have to separate them. Or more so of I even see, I kind of like, before I used to be a little like a little like I used to be too cautious for my animals, right? And then I'd be so scared
Right.
for me to lose an important female, right? So
Yeah,
I'd
yeah.
I'd pull her right away. I've learned now that they heal like Wolverine almost, right? Where,
Mhm.
Right.
man, if the bite was a slice, it's gonna be healed in a couple of days. It'll
Right.
just, yeah. But if it's obviously a lot deeper, then it's gonna take a lot longer. But if they're quick slices, and sure, it is a little bloody, I just leave them. I just let them kind of sort their differences out a little bit. Now,
Right.
if it gets to the point where he's trying to like pull her arm off, or he's like ripping limbs and tails off, then it's a bit much, and I'll obviously remove her then. Um, but yeah, it's my style now. I'm breeding. It's a bit different because I couldn't just grab all the males and females, just because not only are they tripping on each other right already, right? But some of them aren't tame, so they're also tripping on me too.
Yeah.
Where they're like, "Oh man, they're frantic. He's gonna grab me. There's other lizards around, that's gonna try to kill me." So it's kind of like a double whammy, right?
Right.
And so I've gotten to the point where I don't even touch them anymore, and I just lift the latch, and they get to go to the other side or not. And then if I want to um, keep them from each other, I just close the latch, or
Right.
zip tie it closed, because they're trying to break through. Before I had a little piece of board that basically just closed the thing, but they've learned to move the board, and then still get through. So now I have to zip tie it closed.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Smart
That's-
animals, man.
How awesome is it though to walk into your room and have something that you saw as a kid and didn't think you'd ever have? Because that's the experience I
Yeah.
get when I take out rhino rats. I remember rhino rats when Pro
Yeah.
Exotics first had them back in like the early 2000s and stuff, and
Mhm.
thinking like those are the coolest snakes ever, and I'm probably never gonna own one.
Yeah.
Same with
Yeah.
green trees. Like I used to see the signal herp ads and reptiles, the full page,
Mhm.
and it's got all the different like blue and yellow chondros, but it has like
Yeah.
little weird sort of neon backlit effect
Right.
on them, and I was like, that's the coolest thing ever. I'm
Yeah.
probably never gonna own one.
You
And now
know,
it's wild, man. It's like
I used to
I love
watch and look at these pictures on kingsnake.com, you know.
Mhm.
Even
Mhm.
when you go to the classified section and you click on monitors, it's the very first picture is 3 little Kimberleys, right? And you know, the coli weren't too public and they weren't in high demand because they never were really available, right? But I have all my dream animals now, you know.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So I really don't want to take it for granted. I try to
Yeah.
not to, you know, I try not to push them to breed, but we're, you know, so it is a bit about the money too, you know, because you gotta have some money go back into your hobby, you know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And but you know, I try not to push them to breed too much. They're just they're there for me to learn, and then if I, you know, when we get to me getting to the point where I'm getting better and better with them, then you know we'll get to breeding. But at this point, I want to take it easy. As
Mhm.
if the animals fit, then I'll do it. But other than that, they just sit there. Some of them are just pets, you know.
Right.
Yeah. So I've got some really dope animals. Some that are look more like exanthic stuff that are just blue and white and gray rather than the typical black with yellow spots. Yeah. So
Yeah.
So these,
There's always got to be someone, though. We've talked about that in
yeah,
the past with other stuff. Like, if it's not for people like yourself that are putting in the time with things that is commonly sort of overlooked in comparison to other species in a certain group, like these are the species that sort of fall between the cracks and get lost to the hobby for
right.
years, if not forever, depending on what
Yeah.
importation looks like. But like pushing the envelope and experimenting a little bit and sort of trying to see what works and crack the code on things. Like
Yeah.
there
There's
is
a
there's
lot
a
of
fine line, but
right.
it's not out of the question to try things, even
Yeah.
if no one else is willing to do it. Like someone's gotta experiment and figure it out.
Right. Like I guess like you know with Morelia or species like that, like Boldens, right? Or how you know it's not as easy. Not everybody wants it, but
right.
not everybody has it, and not everybody can do it, right?
Right.
And so it's left to some of those guys that are willing to test theories out and go the full distance on what
Right.
their theories are to test out. And I think like for with the Bolins, right, I think it was keeping them extremely cooler than most of the other snakes, and that's what really got
Mm-hmm.
got them to work. Something like that. I think that's what the reading was. But for example, because I think a lot of the guys that follow you are a lot of snake guys that follow you guys, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and so the clear example, if no one was to do this species, or the other species like it, and it doesn't even have to be like a top dollar dream animal. It can just be like Nile monitors, right?
Oh, for
No
sure.
one's breeding those things, but
I don't
they
really know
come-
anybody that's even seriously keeping those anymore. I mean, I'm
right.
sure it exists because I see some on my local Craigslist periodically, but
Yeah,
you
it's
really don't see
Yeah.
Niles outside of the babies at shows, and who
Right.
knows what happens
Right.
to those after a month
Yeah, and
being wherever
so
they're
what
at.
I'd like is whatever I'm doing that's hard with these mangroves, right? A lot of people don't want to do these species either because they don't bring in money,
Mhm.
or they obviously, the work and space and energy and all that stuff like that goes into it really outweighs what you can possibly
Yes.
do, so people don't do it, right? A lot that's when when people are really calculating it and it doesn't weigh out. Sometimes if the passion wasn't there to begin with, it was just about money, right?
Right.
You gotta really be like, even if it's a $20 Savannah monitor, you got to really be dedicated to that species to really want to get it to breed, and even if you're not going to make any money off of it, still be satisfied with what you got
Mhm.
going on.
Well, that's a
And
prime
Exactly.
so,
example, I think, too, of a species that no one breeds because they come in so cheap as imports. Like,
yeah,
it's the work to reward ratio is severely offset, so that's why they're
right,
pretty much largely ignored. It's in terms of captive breeding.
yeah, and these guys that are maybe one day we won't get nows anymore, and they won't be $15, $20 anymore. They'll
Right.
be several $100s because they're a gorgeous animal. It's just the timing, and so the timing to do them, and like even black roughnecks, or I don't know, another crazy import, blue tail monitors or peach
Mhm.
throat. Those guys are high demand. They typically sell pretty well, are imported at a sort of average cost, not too much, but not really cheap either, like a now monitor.
Right.
So a few $100s, and I think people want to try to breed them, and I know definitely there's a couple people that have pairs and stuff like that. It's just really thinking out the box here with what I'm doing with the mangrove monitors. I'm keeping them a lot cooler. I feed a lot less. I'm no longer just pounding and pounding and pounding to expect them to do the deed for me, right?
Mhm.
Right.
I'll have a lot of things more played out. The time frame on how I'm doing stuff, when I do it, as far as feeding and stuff goes. I'm very strict on my diet now, rather than just all right. I think you're cycling. Let me just feed the hell out of you, right?
Mhm.
Actually, lost a couple females this way, trying to get them to double clutch, and or trying to get them to go into the cycle by feeding them a whole lot of fatty stuff. Um, if that's what I learned, is it can also be uh what's that word here? Uh, Basically works against what you're trying to do here. And so,
Counterproductive.
counterproductive. Yeah. So I feel like
Yeah.
when I was just feeding the hell out of them after they'd lay, or even if they were pretty skinny and I wanted to kind of get them into a cycle, right? Um, I realized if there wasn't time ready for them and I was just feeding the hell out of them, they just ended up fat. And I
Mhm.
ended up
Right.
killing a couple this way, just by that alone. I think I was just kind of pushing it too heavy, and they ended up having issues, and basically stuff was backed up in them. Food was rotting in them when I opened the animals up.
Oh,
Yeah,
Damn.
yeah. So really, really tough. And then the fat too was there and really prominent. So um, I wouldn't say that they were like really lean animals. So now my animals are a lot leaner, unless it's time to produce, right? And sure, they're getting food, but I have it more. Like before, I was using, okay, I was trying to get them to cycle really well and carry on the whole thing. So I'd use mice a lot. And just
Mhm.
because, adult mice have pretty good content, but then sometimes they can be really fat too, depending on where you get them from,
yeah.
right? Yeah. And so
Right.
now I use like quail, chicks. I don't use egg a ton anymore, just because you just like high calorie, high cholesterol with the eggs too, right? So they're just fatty.
Right.
And so I don't use egg a ton, but when I need to carry a female from her skinny state into a cycle, I'll use
Mhm.
egg in that period there, but I won't continually use it throughout the whole process anymore,
That makes
just
sense.
because it adds extra heftiness to the whole meal,
Yeah. It's pretty
so
dense.
Right.
those calorie protein bombs and fat bombs that I'm adding initially are just that diet, like egg, mice, and some chick, right, or a combination of all that.
Mhm.
But then when I'm scaling them back, or I'm carrying them through, I'm feeding them stuff with pretty high in calcium but low in fat. So like crawfish and shrimp
Mhm.
and stuff like that, where the shell in a crawfish actually has quite a good amount of calcium content.
Right.
Mhm.
Same with shrimp as well, right? And so, but they're lean foods, so they'll still give good stuff to the eggs, right? And without depleting so much from the females.
Right.
Um, and so it's not that I still dust a bit, but it's just I'm no longer utilizing big mice and rat pieces because they have good bone content. I'm using it in a different way now.
Right.
And then coming out of laying, most people with monitors are throwing a bunch of food at the monitor right away, getting it to eat a bunch. basically giving it back what it took from the eggs, right?
Right.
So what I do now is just give a little bit of food and carry them on and keep them lean after that whole thing, and it, it actually is a lot easier for me to send them into a whole another cycle in 60 days if I wanted to, and the animal is a lot more easier to read rather than coming out of the whole thing really hefty already.
Yeah, I'm sure
Right.
that's much that aligns more with natural
Yeah,
history and stuff
And I'm
too.
sure it's much easier on their systems, so that
yeah,
can be kind of a shock too. You go from
Flooding
not
the
eating
livers and
much and
kidneys with
yeah,
things. And
exactly.
right. And so now, now it's just being a little bit more cautious and strict with every female, right? So, before I used to kind of put all of them within a schedule and a time frame on what I wanted to do stuff. But now it's all right. If you're gonna be breeding and you're breeding now, there's a male with you, then we're gonna feed you this way. If you're by yourself, we'll feed you similar, but we know you're by yourself and there's no need to either pound you. We're just gonna feed you 2 to 3 times a week. Nothing like if you were to be breeding, you'd be fed maybe 5 to 6 times a week, but small meals, right?
right.
Right.
Yeah. So something like that where that's what I'm kind of doing now with my stuff. And I have so many animals that there is quite a bit to do, and playing like musical cages and stuff too,
Yeah. Keep
Yeah.
track of everybody and where they're
Yeah,
at.
keeping track of everybody. Like right now, since Mike sent me a couple more monitors to try, since I've hatched the one, and I'm trying to get more bloodline and more options to plug and play with males and females. Um, yeah, there's just a lot to juggle and trying to keep things from killing each other.
Yeah, that
But
sounds like it would be the biggest factor in it all is keeping your animals safe, like trying
yeah,
to trying to breed them.
yeah. Like the other day, man, like 3 or 4 different fights were going on.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
Royal Rumble and you're
Right. I told my lady, I was like, you know what? You're gonna have to cut the grasshoppers today because I got to I gotta move stuff and we have to
busy
patch stuff
stopping
up.
murder.
I have to grab like a few, like I had to actually make a jug of iodine and water, just so I can rinse some of these wounds off real quick and
Oh,
throw the
jeez.
animals back in the cage. Yes, it's a
Be in the corner man, basically.
it's nuts, man. Yeah, so uh, just basically trying to keep animals from killing each other. Some stuff I had to separate, just because I already knew that it was going to end bad by the way they were behaving. So some stuff, they're not so bad. It's just more of like a huff and puff, and an
Hmm.
animal runs across the cage, and
Right.
they're not biting too much. Then I'll leave them. But once they start biting at each other's arms and pulling it and stuff like that, then I'll pull them apart.
So have
Um,
you ever been on the receiving end of one of those bites?
yeah, yeah, man. I have a female that purposely drops the food after she takes it from the tongs, and when I go to pick it up to give it back to her,
Oh
she
god.
reach yeah, she'll grab my pinky. She's actually hit me a couple times for sure already. Like,
Oh
yeah,
jeez.
she's smart, real smart. Um, that's the one where I get bit from, basically the most. There's been a couple times where I've waken up a monitor lizard, and even though he was tamed and he's really good, I think he just took it as like, oh man, he's tapping my head with food, and he bit
Right.
me. Yeah, and so that was actually a pretty bad bite on my like my middle finger, across my middle finger and across my index finger.
Oh jeez.
Yeah, yeah. So that bled pretty bad. But okay, so what I recently found out, or more so of adding it together, Dr. Fry from Australia has done research and found that monitors had some toxins in their lower jaw, right?
Yeah.
I guess supposedly they're venomous. I there's people don't put a whole lot of weight behind it because people don't die from it, right?
Right.
Right.
It's just like a bee sting where if you were to have possibly an ill effect, you'll probably go to the hospital and then get, EpiPen or
Hmm.
some type of inflammation helper or something like that to help you with what's going on. But When I get bit now, or when I get bit by mangroves and they hang on, um, man, I'm pretty much out for a couple days with like dry sweats.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah, pretty kind of basically knocks me out a little bit. I don't feel like doing a whole lot, even if is a lot to do. I basically do it a whole lot slower. And then man, this last time I was like talking gibberish for a few hours, my lady says.
No, man,
Yeah,
really?
hot sweats, cold sweats, just basically feeling like I was just sick. Um, and yeah, man, I had to sit out for a couple of days with a bite from a baby too, from a baby mangrove. It was
Mm.
actually, it wasn't even a
Wow.
big one. But yeah, man, it's it has some type of blood thinner in it. The bite may have not been so bad, but it was like a quick slice, right? And
Right.
I think the blood thinner makes it bleed and it makes it look really bad.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, makes the blood makes it look really bad. But the wound, if it's a slice, it typically heals pretty well. Um, yeah,
Do you think well, has it been like that since like the first time you got bit by one, or has it progressively gotten worse every time you've gotten bit?
yeah, I think it's someone. Catherine Brown told me that she's noticing all her bites get worse and her body's reaction get a lot worse. Me, I'm not exactly sure. I've had some, and I think I was probably just too young and dumb to pay attention before, and
Mhm.
just like bulldoze through the bite without any issue. But now, maybe since I'm older, I respond to them a little bit differently or something. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
It's yeah. I mean, like I'm allergic to dubia, and it seems to get anytime I get like a serious. Um, I think it's mostly almost like a dander thing that seems to be the big trigger of it. But
Yeah, it's
I've
the
noticed
frost.
it's it seems to progressively get worse every time I have a serious sort of
I
incident
mean
with it.
that's what they say about getting bit by venomous snakes. Like
Yeah,
the
yeah, I've
more
heard
you
that.
get bit by a venomous snake, the worse it gets
Which
usually.
is
Which I don't know if that's
strange, but
fact or not, but I've
dubia
heard
thing now, like yeah, I like double up on mask. I wear
the more
gloves,
you're exposed
Oh
and
man,
to
even
it.
yes,
then,
Yeah.
I need to probably start wearing goggles or something while I'm doing it because
yeah. It's
it's getting brutal.
that whole Dubious. So I remember when Dubious first came out when I was when we were really young, right? The roach scene was there, but only for like really niche people that were producing their own roaches. It
Hmm.
wasn't where everybody can just buy roaches all the time. You were getting crickets and butterworms and waxworms and mealworms then. Um, but doing the roaches, I used to do like orange heads and dubious too, and it wasn't so bad. But when I got older and I was doing dubious and I tried to have a huge bin, the frass and the dust and just dealing with dubious period. I mean, even now, like buying a cup from the store and opening it, man, it's like automatically I get the sniffles and sneeze and my eyes get all watery.
Hmm.
And
Jeez.
man, I don't know what it is. And it wasn't that bad when I was younger, dealing with them and breeding them and being all in the bin. But now I don't even invite them into my house unless I know something's gonna just eat them and devour them like right there.
Right away, yeah.
Yeah, I buy like 30 to 50 and they're gone, right?
Yeah.
That's it. I don't have any sitting around and I just feel like it gets worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a secret. Man, for people that are out there, or even you, man, you might have to have some even more protective than your double mask, for breeding the dubix. It's a slow killer.
Hmm.
Um, I think I think some people just don't understand all that getting into your respiratory system and making you
Mm.
all riled up, right? Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
like my throat literally starts to close up. Like the
yeah,
last time I had a serious exposure to him, like I was on the couch for a minute, and wasn't like severely struggling to breathe, but it was
You
definitely
were
harder.
wheezing a bit.
yeah,
Like I
right.
took Benadryl and was just sitting there and waiting for it to start working its magic because
I
I
mean, because
was
that's one of
shallow. Like my breathing got pretty
mm,
shallow.
that's
Like it
one
was
of
to the
those
point I was like, this
things
is
you won't
bad.
know it's gonna be bad
Yeah,
until it is. There's gonna be
right.
that time that it gets so bad all of a sudden you can't breathe and you're laid up on the
It's
floor. Like,
asphyxiated, right?
right.
It's
It's
so damn
this.
expensive. Otherwise, I'd have one on hand or something. But
There's like people that have these in your room or Man, it's just if you're allergic to it, and you have them just free, all exposed, and it's not like in a extra room where you're not always in that room.
Mhm.
Yeah, be careful. Just maybe get yourself checked out or take the right medication or have pretty good ventilation, but don't be all
Well, what's even more bizarre, because Dr. Wyman, he talked about us. He has a similar thing, and he's like, I got sensitized to shrimp and stuff because of it, but I can still eat shrimp and stuff like that and have no
Damn.
problems, which is
Yeah.
strange, because normally those two sort of would go hand in hand just because of how closely, I guess, related they are, as gross as that is. But
Let's see. I wonder if it would be a thing if like you were dealing with live shrimp, or if you were actually like pulling the heads off shrimp and
not,
skinning them and stuff. Have you done
I
that?
think maybe
since
it's
all
just
this?
because I've been eating shrimp my entire life,
Maybe.
that it's not a foreign protein to my body like it is with dubia, and I don't know, but I can eat all
Could
that
you
stuff.
just eat a cup full of dubias every week so you get
Spoonful of dubia a
Maybe if the
day
nuclear
keeps
war
the
is
doctor
happening, that
away.
it seems like we're approaching. Tell Katie, like, we're good on food if nuclear war happens. Like, we've got
Got
the roaches,
dubia
we've
for
got the
days.
mice, we've got the
So-
waxworms and mealworms.
It's why I do it. It's why I do the grasshoppers.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no smell to the grasshoppers. I mean, I can have months and months of poop piled up, and there's no crazy dust like that.
It's weird. You would think it would be
Yeah,
like crickets. Like, how crickets, they
right.
smell real bad, but they're like
No,
really high in nitrogen.
yeah, no smell, no chirping, no dying fast. Man, they just so.
Well, that's a good segue into that. I think that's
Yeah.
the biggest thing that has changed with you since our last episode. You are breeding grasshoppers like a madman.
Yeah.
How's
This
how's that business going?
That's it's I mean it's great. I can't complain. It's growing. For one, when we first did that podcast, I had like 25, right? Something
Right.
like that. Just and even prior to that, me and Dean were killing a lot of them. So we had our own projects that we didn't even know each other had. I was catching some, he was catching some. Some of us we would have partial success. Honestly, I'd kill most of the ones that I caught because I was feeding them the wrong thing. I'd have some, and then I just fed them off to my animals if I thought that they were going to kick the bucket. But we finally got into tapping into the actual pleasant species to work with, the non-toxic stuff. We have to kind of weave out. When we traveled not the whole United States, but along the West Coast, up and down to Vegas, San Diego, Sacramento, just all sorts of places where people were reporting them and stuff like that, and where there are known sightings, and basically we go and try to catch them. Go
Right.
herping, and basically instead of herping, we're looking for grasshoppers with nets. And man, I was fucking Dean had me in the Mojave at 105 degrees, bro. We were throwing boulders and like rocks into trees to knock these grasshoppers out because we couldn't climb these thin branches, right? They were just giant bushes rather, and they were up there at the very top. We can see the wind blowing them, and they'd flutter, right? And so, dude, and they wouldn't come down though. A couple would come down, and we actually caught a couple of them. But man, picture just launching rocks, and you're just exhausted in the heat, and you got to remember, like, we're in the Mojave, like it's just blistering on us, Yeah, and so
it's like a giant oven.
and we're just in the sun, just launching rocks, and nothing would really come down, or it would come down and go to the next tree or something like that. And
Right.
Yeah, we ended up catching a couple stuff like that. And that's how we ended up with most of our species. And now we have probably, I don't know, maybe 10 species that we have working with between the two of us. And basically, blanketing the whole United States a little bit. It's been so the gain is that they're not legal just like that. Okay, we're fully permitted. So we had basically to go through all the state regulations for USDA,
Yeah, because
They
they're
get
like an
they're-
agricultural nightmare, right?
right,
Like
right.
there's a
So
potential for a serious problem if, at least with
yeah,
non-native species, that's what their biggest concern is.
exactly. And so every state is a little bit. Every state is known to grow. Not every state, but most states are known to grow some type of crop or contribute some way. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so you know, most of the states are pretty specific on what I send, and so I have to be approved for that state to send certain species, things like that. Um, so you really have to get into the whole legality process before you really expand your thing.
Yeah.
If you guys are just feeding your grasshoppers to your pets, not really an issue. But once you begin to start selling them or have them in such large quantities where it's a major worry, um, then your permit and stuff like that come into play, or where they need to come into play. Just because you want to do it the right way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But with the grasshopper stuff, man, uh, I guess I quit my job at during the whole COVID stuff.
Right.
Just started doing grasshoppers because the demand was just so crazy.
So
Um,
is that how you kind of got started with it? Like, did you see a gap in the hobby and you just
um,
decided to fill it,
yeah,
or how did you kind of decide to do grasshoppers? Because that's a specific like bug. Normally, people who breed insects, they breed a lot of different insects, but you're just like grasshoppers, and you do a
right.
lot of them, but obviously it's been very successful.
You,
So what
you
what
know,
made you go that route?
people from all over the other countries are utilizing grasshoppers.
Hmm.
People in the UK and stuff like that are, I wouldn't say like light years ahead of us with keeping, but they do have other advances that we don't.
Hmm.
And so learning from those guys over there, and then also seeing guys in Asia, seeing them not bred for reptiles but bred for food. They're
Right.
sold there as popcorn snack type things or
Mm-hmm.
street food. They're sold on sticks dipped in honey or whatever, right? And yeah, so they're a commodity food over there.
Hmm.
And so I learned watching people breed them and try to utilize them for food consumption, whichever way. And I felt like, man, our animals can really benefit from them here, because we're left with stuff that has either too much chitin, which is just hard shell like
Yep.
mealworms and stuff like that, or even if you look at in comparison to size, right? A large hisser has a lot of shell. It's very hard shelled. The large dubias are also pretty hard shelled, and so animals that shouldn't really have a lot of that in their diet, or even naturally wouldn't eat that in their diet, like tree monitors, chameleon, arboreal lizards, right? They wouldn't really come down too much to
Right.
be eating roaches that are naturally more on the ground, because not too many roaches are highly arboreal.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are katydids and butterflies and praying mantis and spiders, and those are all fairly soft-shelled insects. They
Hmm.
have to be because they're flyers, right?
Right.
And so that's just a an observation, really. And then looking at it where people were finding animals, you know scientists going through the gut content, making the animal regurgitate, or even gutting DOAs or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And finding that grasshoppers, katydids, stuff like that were a very much so primary diet for many animals.
Hmm.
Not only do they do the whole plague stuff, right? And they, have so much of their offspring just go over fields and fields and fields that they're a big diet for a lot of animals, just because how prolific the bugs are themselves in the wild,
Yeah,
right? Whenever
that
they
makes perfect sense.
right. And so yeah, man, it's a thing where I kind of just tried to realize that was a thing that we needed to try to introduce here. We failed a lot before that, so it was like a thing that we kind of gave up on until we found more of the right species. Um, but yeah, man, it's just having crickets die on you so fast, and the
Mm-hmm.
smell, you buy 100 and you're only left to use with 30 or 50 of them because most of them dead the next day. Shipping them, they're most people are click and go like myself, where I want stuff just to arrive to my door because we're either so busy or going to the store. They either don't have it or don't have the right size. Or let's say the store's not going to sell you 1,000 or 2,000 or 10,000 that you want, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to order online, and these crickets end up dead because they don't travel well. Same thing with dubias; they don't travel too well. If it's too hot and sweaty in the box, or if it's too cold, they die. The grasshoppers, dude, I've been shipping to Alaska, the Great Lakes, Wisconsin at below zero. Maybe the lowest is -15 so far.
Jeez,
Hell
And
no.
they
that's
arrive
nuts.
they arrive live, or they arrive dormant, and then people just wake them up by putting them underneath a little heat lamp. So yeah, man, they're an extremely indestructible bug almost. Other than if I give them some pesticide food, they're dead
Well,
immediately.
yeah.
But
I mean, there's a reason the USDA's concerned about them. Like clearly
Yeah.
they're
Pretty bulletproof, it
of
Right,
sounds
massive
like.
concern if the
you know,
countrywide, if the
I have
USDA is
some
like, yeah,
outside.
we don't like these.
I have some outside that I left in a cage. Right, there's like I'll clean, and maybe there's one or two that they're in a pile of cage that's left to clean for the week, because I've emptied them out. Right, and I don't always pick up these one or two. They're stragglers and missing a few legs or something like that, and I'll have them out there for days underneath all type of weather, no food, and they'll just be sitting there waiting for me to pick them up. They're just alive. When most bugs underneath any kind of weather like that, they'll just be dead. And so, yeah, really, really,
Screen
really,
enclosures?
huh?
You keeping them in like screen enclosures?
I'd use a little bit of everything before I did, um, just because that's what a lot of when I'd look at examples, right? A lot of people are using mesh cages and stuff like that. I don't use too many mesh cages anymore because I was having a lot of escapees, especially the smaller species that I would do, and then I would lose so much heat and
Oh yeah, that's true.
my conserving of electricity and everything like that. So now I utilize like bins and stuff more and
Okay.
cages. Yeah, so everything is trapping in heat. I utilize a bit less, and yeah, just I basically go from there where I've just adjusted and doing similar methods but different style cages.
Nice. Then are they pretty prolific breeders? Like, do they produce quite a bit?
Yeah,
Biblical
yeah.
proportions.
Um, it's it takes a while to get them going, and they can be
Mm.
pretty tricky. Um, they not only do they eat a lot, right? If you can't really keep up with that, you're not really going to get so much as far as animals being prolific at all.
Right.
So if they're destroying like heads of lettuce a day,
Oh my God, really?
or like a bag of carrots last days, stuff like that. Where if you're not really keeping with that, then they're not really going to be prolific at all. But I think if
Mm.
someone were to be consistent with what they've got, and make sure that they're on top of the food, on top of the how they're being maintained, then they do pretty well. But yeah, it really just depends on your amount and everything like that too.
Right.
um it's tricky because you can have a bunch do well, and then all of a sudden they just keel over.
Mm.
That's been my biggest issue is when they hatch they die, or when I have a bunch of them and all of a sudden like a third of the cage just starts just dropping dead. So yeah, I actually don't even know how to stop that stuff yet. So I'm still I'm not new, but still learning as I go
Still
with
tweaking it.
stuff. Yeah, I just always tweaking it and always adding to it, or trying to do stuff better where I don't end up with these results, but man, I've seen other people too where their colonies just crash on them for some reason,
Mhm.
and we're not understanding why just yet.
I got you.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
do you guys produce the ones you sell, or are you still doing a lot of like catching of them?
Oh no, we're done catching them. We
Okay.
already caught a lot of the species that we kind of want to work with, or
Mhm.
having friends that are other states send them into us or
I got
whatever
you.
like
Yeah.
that. But what the process is basically taking what's in the wild, and we never sell what's in the wild because we don't know what they're eating.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's one thing like lubbers that are technically toxic, but some other species that just like, let's say if they ate a bunch of nightshade plant or something like that, basically adds to their toxicity and makes them unpalatable.
For sure.
Now what we do is we take them, breed them, raise those babies, breed those, and then sell those babies. That's
I got
that's all. That's what we typically do to sort of domesticate and make them more useful or more adaptable to what it's going to be like now for them.
you. Mhm.
Mhm.
As producers. Some species don't do well at all, man. They don't do well at all, and people have really tough luck with them, or it's just something that doesn't add up within all the stuff that needs to add up to raise grasshoppers. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So if someone were to be very inconsistent with their stuff, not going to work. Bad at feeding or keeping up with food, that's not going to work. I don't know. They want to keep them in the garage, and the garage has got a lot of smells. Probably not going to work.
Oh, really?
Like
Smells will play a
like
factor with them?
like your car smell,
Oh,
or
okay. Yeah.
maybe like the laundry room
Mhm.
all like
Mhm.
all hot and everything like that. Yeah, stuff like that. I think, man, there was a guy that had pest strips, so they weren't
Oh
even
my
touching him,
God.
but the pest
Huh.
strips were just killing all his grasshoppers,
Oh.
and they would be in the room on the other side where the snakes were. So
Wow.
simple things like that too would just kill him. So yeah, man, it's a tough one where the grasshoppers themselves all just doing it, the process of getting permitted, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, I can
Yeah,
imagine.
yeah. And then that's not even catching them and then having to cup or bag them too. So
Yeah, that's catching, breeding, raising, breeding again, and then raising those again and breeding to get
yeah,
what you have sold. It definitely
yeah. But
sounds
no,
like
what
you.
I meant is catching them to cup and bag and
Oh
sell.
yeah,
Yeah,
oh yeah, I can only
yeah.
imagine that, boy.
Yeah, I
Jeez.
still gotta do all that. Like I still do all that basically by hand.
Yeah.
I might be able to catch more than one or two by hand, but they still there's still no fast way to do it without killing a bunch of grasshoppers in the process. Just because the way they jump,
Mhm.
they're just so vigorous with how they jump.
I'm sure it can be difficult to keep them contained as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
How many grasshoppers will you keep to a bin?
Um, I guess in an 18 by 18, several hundred to 1,000,
Oh wow.
give or take. Yeah, but that's varying sizes. If it's small, sure, I can keep a bunch in there. But if they're large, maybe a few hundred max.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's crazy.
yeah. Just because they're just so they're all over, trample on each other, and I want people to have the integrity of the grasshopper to hold. Where they're
Right.
not like missing a bunch of legs and they're not all distorted looking. I want them to get good, nice looking stuff. So I space them all out.
Mhm.
They can't, yeah, they can't really be packed in there too much like crickets.
Right.
Yeah.
How many Kimberly rock monitors are you at now?
Oh man, my army. I just have two pairs. I have mm, let's see here. I have about four juveniles that I'm looking to raise up and seeing if the sexes work out for me. But I've been tempted to sell those just because yeah, just I don't think I need that many Kimberlys. I thought I did, but
Are they as
I
awesome
don't.
as everyone says they are?
They are, man. They are.
I've been talking to Alan about some.
Oh yeah.
I got Ackies finally. I got a pair of Ackies from him, and pretty much I just want Ackies and I want some Kims, and that's where I'm drawing the line with monitors. But that's also because of Eric Burke.
Yeah, if you're thinking about the monitor wise and how these Kimberleys are, picture your Ackies but with the squirrel complex.
I don't know. My Aggies are pretty squirrely as is, man.
And these are more acrobatic squirrely.
Jeez.
Yeah. So, they're okay. They're a lot more fragile just because their tails are different. Their tails aren't like yours, where they're just basically studded with spikes, right?
Right.
These are more cylindrical tail that it's very long and pretty, but the tips are like lead pencil thin, right? And so that tip, basically, if you don't take care of the environment right, the tail will start to go, and it'll either dry up on itself, or it'll whip it around, and let's say if it is dry, it'll just split. Yeah, so it's they're tricky. I've had some where I thought I was keeping them well enough and humid enough, and then they also end up with a little bit of blisters, like it's called bumblefoot, right, on their blisters on their toes. And I've had to dry them up after that because I was keeping them slightly too humid. There's a balance where you have to basically apply enough moisture into the soil, but not have it like wet all over.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so it's tricky, but yeah, they're basically more arboreal. They spend so much more time in like how how you have stacks for your Ackies, right? Picture them now vertical stacks, or not vertical, but they're just stacking from the
taller
wall, coming outwards, and so you'll have the wall and then whatever flats, and they'll love those vertically stacked flats rather than having horizontal stacked flats, and the tight gaps, elevated tubes. Mine spend majority of their time up top, but they come down and they dig, they do all that other stuff too. But yeah, man, my Kimberleys are really dope. I have 2 pairs, unrelated stuff, and yeah, man, they're I have about 5 eggs cooking right now. I have another female due to lay. She keeps on digging a storm, so I actually have no idea what's going on, but she's due to lay because she won't eat. So
what size are your adults in setup wise?
My bigger pair are in a 4x4 by 2 foot deep, and then I have the smaller pair in a 2x3.
Okay.
So yeah, nothing too huge. The smaller pair is separated, so the female lives in there by herself, and then that male is that motherfucker is too vigorous, so he can't stay with that female. Just because he's always on her, and I don't want to kill her,
Right.
Yeah. Last year she had like 8 or 9 clutches.
Wow.
Yeah.
8 or 9 clutches.
How often was she dropping those?
Basically every like every 45 days or so.
Wow.
Are they all infertile?
No, most were fertile.
Wow.
Most were fertile. Maybe 2 to 3 clutches were infertile, but most were
That's
good.
insane.
Yeah, people think that they're hard, and they can be if you don't have stuff hooked up. They'll never do stuff for you if you do it wrong. So if you overfeed them, they'll breed once, good, right? But you keep them fat, they'll stop. Let's see here. You can get them to breed and lay as much as Ackies. As much as people breed Ackies, and you see people like Alan posting like every other month, right?
Yeah.
He's
every other week.
Yeah, he's literally hatching stuff out like all the time. So, they can be just as prolific. The pair that he has, I think they're only a year old, um, or the few that he has, and he basically had to start over by raising babies, um, and yeah, putting those to use. But you can see how he's doing it, and he's already got I think a couple clutches already, from those 1 year olds. I don't push my animals, so I typically wait till they're about 18 months to 2 years old to breed, and they give me better results, and I get more life out of them. So I don't really push them too much. I purposely wait till like they're 18 months and 2 years old.
Now, do you think that the sort of desert Australian stuff is more difficult than sort of the more tropical, like Indonesian stuff, or vice versa? What's
I
the
find the Indonesian stuff, especially the small islands, a lot harder than the Australian stuff.
Does that
But
go as far as like care or breeding or both?
breeding,
Okay.
yeah, breeding is a lot harder. There's just, most of those Australian stuff, if you think about it, right? Like if you could just go across the board. Um, Flavies and sand monitors are produced here. Lace monitors are produced here. Ackies, blackhead monitors, Kimberleys are produced here. Primordius are produced here. Quadulenus Gelani are produced here.
Mhm.
Um, Kingorum are produced here. The leucistic ones are produced here. Let's see, we have there's a couple more, right? And those were all the Australians that are produced here. But if we were to go and say peach throats are not produced here, Dorianus or blue tails are not produced here. The tree monitors are now starting to be more produced here. Okay, but they're a different kind of, different type of monitor than the other stuff.
Right.
Yeah, they're
Like
kind of their own thing.
right, the mangroves. I'm the only person that's really doing them here like that. Um, let's see here, like black roughnecks, brown roughnecks, Jumerals monitors are not produced here like that.
Hmm.
Most of those smaller island endemic water monitors like Kamingai are being produced here, but not like in crazy numbers, but they're being produced here by a few guys, just in the last few years too. So, like the water monitors seem to be a lot simpler as far as most of the Asian and Indonesian stuff, but when you go and try to do other stuff that are within the same region as those guys, they're just a lot harder. They just prove to be a lot harder, like
Do
croc monitors, really
you
hard.
think it has something to do with the fact that the Australian stuff seems to do like they're easier in terms of like you can have animals together and not really have to worry about them as much as you do the Indonesian stuff?
Not as aggressive
Like
towards
there's a
each other.
social
Yeah.
aspect to them that separates them a little bit.
Right, you can see almost like they're social. They're
Mhm.
a
Right.
lot cooler with having the male to a couple female dynamic. Man, mine, uh, they basically claim that nesting area, and if another female comes close to it, she's dead. Right, it's kind of like how
Jeez.
how they play around. Even if the female's laid and there was a male that she bred with, and where you would think they would get along, um, during her time of laying and protecting all that area, she's gonna actually attack the male. So I have to kind of remove him, or that's why I have my partitions up,
Mhm.
so that way they're kind of they're safe somewhat from each other.
Mm.
I just kind of notice a pattern like the Australian stuff. If you keep them in pairs, they seem to do okay. Like water
Yeah,
monitors, think about water monitors in like the major cities and stuff where they're native. You see like big communal sort
bunch
of
of them.
groups of
Yeah,
them, so maybe there's like some aspect to that that just
Right.
makes those easier. I don't know. It's just me.
yeah. And that's why it's difficult because not that there's I don't want to draw a line and say that there's two sides, but basically there kind of is, where the Australian stuff you can kind of heat them and feed them and they'll do their thing, right? But the Asian and Indonesian stuff and the African stuff too, because they're not being readily produced like that, um, need need a bit more specifics and a little bit more strict on the diet and how you do it. So yeah, it's a bit tricky where I don't promote heat them and feed them,
Hmm.
and I kind of do a seasonal drop, and I changed the humidity a bit. Along with that, I time the diet to dwindle down as well, and then I bring them all back up simultaneously with heat, humidity, food, and all that. And that typically would give me a really good season. I've learned that that's how I've also opened up a whole cycle and a whole period of her developing follicles that time, right?
Mm.
And then I can close it off too by slimming them back down. That close off hasn't been the easiest. I've had to learn that this last year by basically not feeding females so much after they lay. Um, but it can be a killer too if you just have them go and go and go, you know. And so it can be tough. Like I have a female Kylan monitor that is giving me only one good egg out of I think 20 that she's laid in the last
Oh,
year.
jeez.
Not clutches, but 20 eggs, you know.
Right.
Because each clutch is only about 3 eggs, and yeah, so she's laid a good half a dozen clutches or so.
Well, you had mentioned that you started keeping the mangroves cooler.
Yeah, I
Like,
no longer
what were you keeping them at before, and what have you dropped them down to?
before I was only aiming to do 80s at the lowest, right? And coming out of winter,
Is that ambient or like a basking spot?
oh sorry, ambient at the on the lowest cool end side.
Okay, gotcha.
Right. And then the hot side would be, typically warm and hot basking areas, 120, 130 surface
I got
temperature.
you.
Right. And but I wouldn't let them really go below 80. Now I go below it at all the way till 65, 70
Oh wow.
on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Not only do I notice them chase it and they'll go over when I apply it, but it seems like they want to utilize that temperature and space
Mhm.
while it's available,
Mm-hmm.
so now I no longer just have it available when I'm cooling them down, but it's also a part of their normal everyday, even during the hot season.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's a little tough during the really hot months here where it's like 100 degrees outside. I have the AC on. They have really low wattage bulbs where they can bask just a bit. I'm not feeding them a ton. It's just so hot, anyways. Really, right? And they they get to just hang out where it's a little bit cooler all around. It's not blistering hot, and it's the cage is also extremely hot as well. It's not that at all. So now in my summertime season, when it's summer for me in Indonesia and Australia, that's their dry season.
Right.
And so I basically have to mimic what the weather is similar over there, where it's not that people think like I'm having their weather change drastically. What I'm doing is just cutting the humidity back a bit, and then the temperatures aren't so blistering because I don't have a bunch of heat lamps on anymore. And so I'm
Right.
kind of utilizing all this. If I don't have the heat lamps on, there's no point for me to feed a lot, and then the humidity is also low just because the heat isn't driving any of the humidity up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so everything is kind of chilly, and I'm mimicking the southern hemisphere during my summertime here,
Mm.
where it's a little bit drier. My AC is making the enclosures cooler and drier because the AC naturally dries it out, period, right?
Mhm.
I'm not spraying a whole ton, and it's not as hot. So yeah, once we get into fall and it starts to rain, everything goes back up for me. So this next year, or this next summertime, I plan on doing that with everybody that isn't going to be breeding, and basically slim them down, take the temperatures back a bunch, and the humidity down, the weather, the food down, and then once it's October and we get our first few rains and the weather starts to change, and you get a feel of everything, right? And that's when I start making my my add-ons back with the heat and the humidity and everything like that.
Mhm.
So
Something I've always wondered about, especially with snakes too, but like especially chondros and other Morelia and stuff, is the winter breeders and how we're able to make things happen when our seasons are the opposite of what they experience
right,
naturally. And I don't know, you think about, like, I would think there would be a pretty clear difference in barometric pressure in the warmer months versus the cooler months, but somehow, and maybe it's just a product of captivity and us having stuff for extended periods of time, that they adjust to that switch in the
Yeah.
schedule. But I just thought,
right.
especially with wild caught stuff, like I wonder if that plays a part in why some of that the imported stuff takes much longer to get around to actually breeding. Is
Yeah,
just you're like you're taking them and completely flipping their
right.
seasons.
Mhm.
And I feel like with the monitors, it's not as I do it because I kind of keep my animals on this whole schedule, right? I just
Yeah.
don't want them just to
Yeah.
breed whenever. So what I'm trying to really do is make it so the rain and the pressure change, it actually hopefully I'm not wasting that time frame,
Yeah.
Right.
Is it for me to not try to breed during that time frame would me basically giving up a whole season, right? And so I have been getting much more success from when it's September, October, November, December, all the way until March. I get a lot of success actually.
Mhm.
Get my most results, right? Most females going into whatever, most eggs laid. But summertime is just, before it was either so blistering because I was keeping stuff so hot that they wouldn't do stuff. But now because I'm changing up, I purposely don't do a whole lot in the summertime. And
Mhm.
before I was feeding them and heating a lot during the summertime, right? And so I would trick myself and actually basically set myself up to fail during the winter because they were fed so much during summer.
Right.
Right. And so I didn't when I tell people it takes me a whole year to prepare for one season, that's what I mean. So I should have taken advantage of March, April, May, June, and July and not feed a ton then,
Mhm.
Yeah.
But I mean,
So
it's work because you got everything sort of synced up and on the same sort of schedule.
yeah,
I'm sure.
that's a weird thing. It's like I'll have a couple animals do the deed during the worst times, like
Mhm.
just yeah. So it really just depends, man. I've had Kimberly's go and a couple females go the just all year almost, and I've actually had to I had to stop a Kimberly and basically pull her because she just was laying, and then 20 days later lay again. Yeah, so it was tough.
Mhm.
I had to really figure out every animal individually, but then also try to do them as a group. So that way everything is synced and I can just, plug and play in the same time frame.
Right.
Yeah.
With the more desert stuff, do you, in terms of calcium,
Oh,
when they're cranking out eggs like that, are you doing anything different with those compared to the Indonesian stuff?
what's crazy is in captivity, the monitors, I keep them, they're basically all the same. So, because in the box, right, in the cage, I don't keep the mangroves entirely wet either.
Mm-hmm.
So, like the surfaces are all dry, but when you go to all the cages, the soil consistency is the same for the Kimberleys and the mangroves.
Mhm.
So when people tell me, "Oh, do you keep them entirely extremely different?" I don't at all. So also the Kimberleys, they're not exactly from the desert. That Kimberly is a rock gorge with water at the base of it.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And so, it's a bit different. If they were to just go down some, they actually can reach a lot of moisture.
Yeah.
But if you were to think about desert, like a real true desert monitor, that would be Varanus griseus, and those guys are from like Egypt and like stuff like that, right? So that's like real desert animal. And not to say that the Kimberleys aren't found in slightly arid looking areas. It's just there's more to their habitat than like what we see,
Yeah.
And so for me, I used to think that way too. I used to just have a ton of dryness at the base, and it was nothing but dry sand. No water in it at all. And then I'd have a slightly moist nest box, and then that nest box would have what I thought they needed. But now, when I get better results, when them shedding and not losing their tails and not having issues shedding at all with their toes and stuff like that, it's because now my base has dense, deep, moist sand.
Mhm.
And I add a layer of dry stuff on top of it so they're not touching it. But that's just what I now do with all the enclosures too. So my mangrove stuff has 70 to 80% sand, and then the rest is like rotting leaves and twigs and soil.
I got you.
So it's basically all around roughly the same. Because in captivity, it's not a whole lot different. You're kind of just keeping them all really the same. For me, anyways, that's how I feel. Where because my Kimberly cages, they're just as humid, and nothing is where I think people kick themselves and drive themselves crazy trying to achieve, like, let's say 80% humidity, right? It's kind of a bitch to do without having to add a ton of moisture into your closure.
Right.
So what I do is, instead of adding so much moisture and then they get bumblefoot or they get blisters from the cage being too wet because you're overly saturating it. Even like water animals like non-monitors can get stuff like this, right? Or my mangroves also get stuff like this when I overwater the cage. They basically end up with blisters, and then they end up with bottom sores, or their belly is all pink because of them sitting on too much wetness, right? And so what I've had to do is just dry those surfaces out and keep them from doing all that. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Yeah.
How do I get my Aggies to love me?
Are they small?
Yeah, they're still young.
Yeah, it's gonna be some time. They're gonna have to build that boldness. Yeah.
I'm still
They
not
are-
convinced they actually
Yeah,
exist.
Jake has yet to see them. He
I've
comes over every
I've
week.
never
and
seen
they're
them,
never
man.
out.
I'm always in
I
his
see 'em
snake
every
room, but I
morning.
never see
Do
them.
you have is your cage like super cluttered, or is it like strategically placed stuff?
A little bit of both.
Yeah, for me, I just
strategically placed clutter?
oh yeah, I'd
Organized
have
chaos.
like the stacks, and then wherever they hide, I can see them. So
Yeah,
that's
see,
where
they got
yeah.
plenty of blind spots where they can probably see me and I can't see them.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And they
So
love
what,
hanging out under the little dig box that I put in there. That's become
underneath
a
it.
little spot. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, all my baby stuff, I have stacks, like reed stacks or flats, and
Mm-hmm.
they're all just piled on top of each other, and they hide in between that. Um, and then I also have like tubes, but the core tubes or the plastic tubes that I have, you can see into them. So even if they're hiding, where they are.
Mm-hmm.
But then this also gives them that advantage where if they were to want to come out and check you out, they're still protected by that tube. It gives them assurance.
Yeah. I mean, they'll be out like the female seems a bit more skittish than the male does.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
very typical.
they'll be out in if I'm in the room, it's not like I walk in and they disappear immediately, but it's definitely one of those things where if I open the door.
Well, do you have a front opening cage?
Yeah.
And you tongue feed them at all?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They
they're getting a little wise to that now, but
where they don't tongue feed anymore, you mean?
If they're out, they will. But
Okay.
now,
Well,
like
you
I have my hand out and I have the tongue, and they have to come out onto my hand in order to take that food. And
did they do it?
Sometimes. Other
Okay.
times,
Yeah,
I think they'll come to the edge of the door. They'll realize what's going on. They're like, "Yeah, no, dude, sorry, I don't want."
yeah,
food
just stay doing that. And then if they don't offer food.
Okay.
Yeah, don't give
Just
it to them.
reinforces that. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can try that. You can also starve them for like a week, and then they'll be so hungry that it'll override their caution because they'll be so hungry. They'll run past whatever and just grab it,
Yeah.
and then
That's what my parents did to me.
you can get them to touch your palm, and then they'll realize after time that, oh, I touched him and he's been feeding me. He's not. I don't think he's really trying to kill me. And eventually that'll go through their head, and then they'll get bold enough where you'll probably be able to have them come out, past your wrist or something like that.
That female's coloring up real nice though, man. She's getting like that really dark, like a lot of black, like a lot of darker tones to her with the really nice.
Yeah, they'll look a whole lot different basically in another year. They'll look, that's what I love about monitors with that whole pattern change. They just look so much different.
So are the mangroves and the Kimberleys all the monitors you have at the moment?
I have a couple odds and ends too.
Mm.
There's let's see here. I have a couple blue tails that I'm trying to sell for a friend. There is a blue tree here. Let's see here. There was some other like weird looking mangroves, but someone else ended up taking those. Yeah, I ended up with stuff all the time that just ends up in my lap,
Yeah.
And I either sell it, or if it doesn't work out, I typically don't say no to people that need to end up finding new homes, unless it's outrageously sized, and obviously I can't care for it,
Right.
If it's like some huge water monitor, I'm not gonna yeah, it's not coming in here.
What's your feelings on the tree monitors?
What do you mean?
I mean, do you enjoy them? You think they're overrated? Like, what's your experience been with those?
Because they have become very, very.
They've become
popular.
they've become sort of like this mystical. And I get it, like the
They're
green
pretty.
and the blue ones, and I like the black ones a lot. Like they are very cool, but at the same time, you see so many of them come in, and people get them, and then they wonder why they don't survive. And it's
they're one of those things like big ass parrots. I don't know. It's a lot of people want them. They're cool, but they're for the people that are really willing to take their time and
they seem like a lot of work.
They're fragile. They're very fragile. They can be very frantic, and if people when they're imported and they're not acclimated, man, they're horrible animals. But if someone gives them the right room and respect, and I think just the whole caring for them with tender loving care and all that stuff like that, it's just that's the way to go about it, rather than I think some people are just buying 1.1 pairs, and it doesn't really end up too well because they don't acclimate well.
They also strike me as something that would do really well if you just kind of ignored them and leave them be.
Yeah, no, I've had some growing up, and I always end up buying some that I think I want, and then I don't like lanky ass lizards. They're just they're just really frail and super skinny, and they're more fragile than anything. And so for me, I don't really like that when they're all spazzy. That's my dislike about them. But they deserve their popularity and everything like that. They're definitely a cool lizard if you can get them to be calm and all that stuff like that, or even if you just want to appreciate them in their cage, they're pretty cool too. But man, raising little cute captive bred babies. I don't think many baby monitors can beat baby tree monitors. That's a hard one. And then the fact that importers are charging more for them. Um, not only is it costing more to bring them here, importers are realizing what they're not getting because what we're charging here for them.
Mm-hmm.
So they're obviously hit to the U.S. market prices because they're available online to see. And
Right.
they can just go on Morph Market or Full Fauna and see that they're available for $3,000 or $5,000 for a blue tree female or something like that. They're not stupid, so they're raising the prices of that too, on top of shipping and importing and whatever freight other costs that you want to add onto the price. Yeah, they've gone up in price a lot, man. The rarity on those, they always say the same thing every year, and every year the price goes up. The numbers don't come in as much as they did before, but they still come in. And they're imported. I see them every few months, so that means there's still somewhat of a steady supply.
Mm-hmm.
But the price has definitely gone up from, like if you buy 5, you can buy 5 green tree monitors for 350, something like that, right? They were pretty cheap, but now it's not looking less than $1,000 per animal. That's
Jesus.
just the wholesale price. So black tree monitors were on the lowest of the demand, just because I don't think people like the black animal too much as compared to the other ones.
Right.
And you can find those. You were able to find those for $600. That was a retail price, but now they're 2 to 3 Gs or $1,500 easily.
Jeez.
Yeah, and so they're cool animals. Not really much of my taste after keeping so many monitors.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What about
they like it cooler too. My place gets really hot.
roughnecks?
Black ones or brown ones?
Both.
They're
I don't know. That's one that has always caught my attention. I don't really see them being kept very much. I'm also not really hip to the circles and who's got them and stuff. But those always
the
look.
brown roughnecks are the Doom Rolls monitors. That's the one with the orange head as a baby.
Mm-hmm.
You've probably seen those.
Mhm.
Yeah, that orange head basically dissipates after a few months of age, and they become a more of like a mud look, and they're an actual mud type of monitor too. The way they're the way they like to live.
Mhm.
Um, so there's a couple people that have them. I think Jim Heck has some, and he's trying with a bunch of adult Doom Rolls. There's a young kid by me. His name's Aiden, and he has a pair. Just recently got a female to lay a clutch, but they were infertile. But he's on the right track, so hopefully he gets there someday. Um, there's a lot of guys that are trying to breed black roughnecks, which are
Yeah, I think it's the blacks that I'm thinking of in particular.
Rudicolas. Yeah, they're the one with that dinosaur beak face.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's the ones.
Yeah, those guys are super high demand too. But not too many people can breed those guys. There's some people that are out there. Man, I like Rob Fox. There's another gentleman. I think his name's like Leon Campbell or something like that. I probably butchering his name, or maybe not even saying his last name the right one or something. But um, there's a couple guys that are with eggs or breeding pairs, but no babies yet for America. Um, let's see here. There's a gentleman that was like I think in Eastern Europe or something like that, where he hatched some out. They were in a magazine and stuff like that. Pretty cool. Um, Other than that, man, I don't see, unless people were to really do something different than what other people were doing with monitors already, like heat them and feed them. Then I don't see too many people having crazy success with Rudicola just yet. But they're getting there.
They remind me of buzzards. They're like the buzzard version.
Yeah.
You got a picture of one on you?
I'm looking at them right now.
They got this crazy beak face.
I can't picture what you. Oh, okay.
I mean, they're color-wise, they're really nothing to write home about,
Yeah.
but
No.
Right.
they just look cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just look cool. They're
The
basically
babies are freaking cool. The
pretty
babies are
brown.
gorgeous.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
that is really pretty.
Oh, this
Awesome.
well, I don't know. This one has like blues on it.
Yeah, they have nice spots when they're young, but that kind of phases out. A lot of monitors end up a drab color when they get older.
Right.
They are very bird-like.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah, they're a tough one to acclimate. If you to get them and they're all sucked up, man, they're not going to do too well.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard. Yeah, you got to keep them extremely dry but humid at the same time. Yeah, that's weird.
That's always such a hard thing to accomplish. That wow, that is
Yeah.
crazy
creepy
looking. That's always so hard to accomplish because I've heard that you got to keep them dry but humid, and it's like, what? How do you do that? That makes no sense.
Yeah.
It's like in Forgetting Sarah Marshall. He's like on the surfboard taking lessons, and he's like, "All right, pop up. You gotta do now. You gotta do a little. You gotta do it slower than that." He's like, "All right, pop up," and he just lays there. He's like, "Well, you gotta do more than that." Just like, don't do anything. Don't even try. Pop up.
Well, I guess on that note, we are at the hour 36 mark. So, Kai, if people want to contact you, whether it be about monitors or getting some grasshoppers from you, how can they do that?
You can find me easiest would be on Facebook, just under Khai Phan, KHAI Fan PHAN. You can also find me on Instagram under big underscore lizard 103. Yeah, those are most of the places that you'll be able to find me, and I'm most responsive at. Um, yeah, you can also find me on YouTube as well under Mangrove Mecca. And then yeah, I think that's just about it. There's
Monitor Keeping Podcast.
yeah, Monitor Keeping Podcast
that out.
on the NPR network.
Oh,
And
nice.
you should be able to find me and Alan and our podcast on there. And
Awesome.
yeah, it's just about it.
Awesome, man. Well, we really appreciate you coming back on for round 2. You know, I was excited to get you back on. You know, like I said, you're one of our OG guests, so it's cool to get an update from you this long later. And sounds like you've had some huge success ever since, man. So congrats on that and all the awesome work that you're doing with monitors and getting grasshoppers around to people all over the U.S.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you guys for having me on, man. It was nice catching you up with stuff, and it gave me time to kind of reflect on all the growth that's been going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, it's awesome.
Well, you guys too. It's like everything is just taking off.
Time flies.
Yeah,
Time
man.
flies, but we're still consistent and we're here still.
Yeah,
Right.
that's the important part.
Something's working.
Yeah, doing something right.
Yeah,
for sure. But
well,
all right,
guys,
man.
have a good one, man.
You as well. Thank you, man.
Have a good one. Thanks.
See ya.
Yep.
All right.
Cool. Episode 153. 153. That was a good one.
It was
Full of a lot of information.
I meant to talk about breeding updates real quick too at the beginning of the episode, but we jumped right in.
Oh yeah, we dove right into
so
that
I put Dion's together this morning, locked immediately.
Yeah, boy.
So I was kind of worried that maybe the female would attempt to eat the male because I've read from multiple sources that cannibalism has been documented in those. So I was like, all right, please don't eat the male. But they were locked. I came home. Like I put them together this morning because she had shed. And so I threw the male in right away. He's been cruising like crazy. So I figured he was ready. Put him in. They were locked. Came home. They were in the little humid hide together still. So I was thinking he was still going at it. I don't know for sure. Put the Bimax together. Pretty sure they locked immediately as well the other night when I put them together. So pretty much everything's together minus the blood red podcorns and then that ghost tester that Chris sent me. I was originally going to pair one of the Ladies Island males to her, but now I'm thinking one of those pied blood reds, maybe. I thought
I thought that was the point of that one though.
Well, I talked to Chris. Chris doesn't seem to really care. He's like,
Yeah.
do whatever you feel like doing. So I was like, well, if you're doing like
I
that,
mean,
but
we're gonna fuck around
since
like
the
that,
blood
man.
reds are in quarantine and stuff still and whatnot, it's
Yeah,
I'm a little cautious, and especially since Chris has already gone down that road with pathogens and stuff. I may just play it safe and just do the I probably will just do the male, the Ladies Island male, the darker one. Why not?
Let me know if you need more incubator space for all these eggs.
I went to Dollar Tree this morning, and so the containers I've been using for like humid hides and lay boxes, the lids don't secure very well. They just kind of pop off, and then you have spag just coming out everywhere. So I found those at Dollar Tree this morning. There's those white ones, and like try to take the lid off that one that it's on, dude. Like these things ain't popping off easy, and that's why I like them so much, and that's why I'm probably gonna go buy like 30 more. And Dollar Tree is no longer just $1. Did you know that?
Yeah,
everything's $1.25. Damn inflation. Yeah, that thing ain't coming off easy, dude. I love it.
I like how it fits on the two hands.
Oh, throw it here so I can show the people because this is on YouTube too. It's the Sure Fresh brand, so there's like a black label usually on the lid. I took it all off. I was gonna melt holes in these while we were doing this episode, but I don't have an extension cord long enough for my thing, so it didn't happen. But yeah, like the lids on these things, they're on there. Like it's a thicker lid too. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not thin, but it'll be good.
Nice. Those are gonna be humid hides or egg boxes.
And lay boxes and humid hides.
Lay boxes. Okay, I got you.
Yeah. So.
Well, like I said, if you need incubator space for all these clutches,
big enough for some of those bigger corns and stuff to do their thing in.
Oh yeah.
And I don't have to worry about them jacking the lid.
Dude, and you know what? That's the other thing that I've started doing with stuff like this. You take that, okay, take the lid off, flip that sucker over, put a hole in it right there. That's a perfect hide.
Yeah.
Like that is a perfect hide box. I've been doing that with a lot of little plastic stuff like this, man. You just stick a hole in it or right in the top. You can put it upside down, put a hole in the top of it. That's a perfect hide box right there, man.
I gave the pies,
awesome.
the blood reds both got humid hides, and the male has busted the lid off of his, and I have yet to fix it. And the female, she's just too big to fit in that one that I gave her. So I was like, I went there this morning because Dollar Tree has so many different sizes of tubs and stuff. And that's where I get my water bowls from too, because you can get a little 5-pack.
I get the plastic water bowls from there. Yeah.
And it's perfect. And they have energy drinks for cheap, and some monsters and stuff, and they got all the snacks. And since I'm fat, I gotta make the most out of my trips to Dollar Tree.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
nice.
Dollar Tree.
That's where it's at, man.
If you lift your nose to Dollar Tree and scoff at it, the joke's on you, because it's like, this is also thick. Like the base of this thing.
Yeah, no,
there's like no flex to this thing at all.
Yeah.
And
they might be a little lightweight for a water bowl. I don't know if I drove a water.
Dude, you get that thing enough with enough.
Yeah, I guess if you filled it up. I've had snakes, especially like the big Pituophis and stuff, man. They just
nothing's safe from a big Pituophis.
They flip those things. No, that I have water dishes with a really wide base now, and oh yeah, I spend a little extra on them. The crock dishes you find at Walmart, but I love those things for the big colubrids that like to destroy everything. Yeah.
So I got these, and then I got another container that I want to try for eggs, and it's the ones that have the little vent on the top that you press it and it just lifts up this little flap, and there's a hole there. I'll have to show it to you when we get done. But I figure I would give that a shot instead of taking the tiniest drill bit I have and putting like tiny holes in there and just leaving that one larger. It's not a big hole, like it's still small, but that one hole in the center.
Is it pretty airtight?
Yeah, the seal on the lid is good, which was a big thing too. So I'm constantly looking for like the one tub that works best for eggs or humid hides / lay boxes, and I think this is going to be the one for that. So if you have a Dollar Tree near you, it's the Sure Fresh brand, and they're white, and so they're going to look gross by the time your snakes are done with them. But it doesn't matter because they're going to use the hell out of it.
It might be a little small for like a big yellow rat or something, but for corn snakes and bears, yeah, dude, that's perfect.
I think once you get into those bigger rats and Pituophis, you might as well just get a small Rubbermaid.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm gonna end up doing. That's one thing I haven't added to all my colubrids yet is humid hides or humid boxes.
The thorn scrub,
I need to do it.
she'll fit in this perfectly too. And
Oh yeah,
she's
thorns
just,
would be
she
perfect.
just destroys the one that she has now because the lid just pops off with zero effort, and so like I don't even bother fixing it half the time. I'm just like, you're just gonna pop this off.
You think about
again.
putting like a little less moss in there to have a little bit more clearance?
No, I
between
kind of
the
like to
top?
pack it out a little bit. I think they like it a little more. Like I've
Okay.
noticed with the babies that I have the human hides in, like when I pack it out, like
bury
they
themselves
really,
in there.
yeah, they really get in there.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see. But I'm just excited.
Nice.
There's so many.
Nothing's better than finding a new tub,
There's
man. Nothing better. You find a new tub for a new thing in your snake
drives Katie
enclosure.
crazy because I always have a ton of these things just laying around everywhere. But
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to melt these. I can't really cut these. It's just thicker. I don't. You know how those last ones I did? I used that circular bit and it just cracked them in some spots. I don't know if these would necessarily crack. These also, I mean, they're not. It's thicker, but it's not like a brittle.
Dude,
like harder, thicker.
I like melting more because of the edge that it leaves. It's
Yeah.
much more like it's soft. I mean, not soft, but it's rounded. You know what I mean? It doesn't leave a sharp edge.
I'd rather hang myself with wax dental floss than have to melt things.
That's not that difficult.
It's just tedious. It has nothing to do with difficulty. It's just it's boring.
Yeah, it does.
And you got to do it ventilated because the freaking plastic fumes will probably cause cancer or something. And I mean, I say that as I smoke cigars every day, but that's different.
That's
not
different.
the same.
It's not plastic.
I will be sure to give an update on. I know this is going to have everyone on the edge of their seats, but how well these boxes work. So
everybody's going to be waiting for that one, man.
Yes. So this was episode 153 of THP
with Sir Khai Phan. Episode 2 with him.
This episode was brought to you by BlackBoxCages.com. Check them out. Rax Cages. Hit them up.
Best of the
they've
best.
Got some cool stuff in the works.
Often imitated, never replicated.
Never duplicated or replicated.
Often imitated.
Yeah, awesome racks, awesome cages to fit just about anything you might need, minus like massive reticulated pythons that pretty much need a room.
They sell big cages though, man. They've got
XA70's a freaking beast, man.
They've got some
gigantic cage.
They've got some big cages. I think what is their biggest one? 6x3x3. I think I know they have that.
In terms of like regular cages, yeah, but they have that.
I know that's it's like a stack. Yeah, it's really tall, but it's not. That's like four. It's like 4 feet long by like almost 6 feet tall.
I think it's pretty much 4 of the XT4s together in one.
Right.
Like not individual cages, but like if you taken 4 of those 4-footers and put them all together.
Yeah, so they're really
pretty wild.
Really tall, really wide, but then they have one. I think it's the XT6. That's like it's like 6 feet long, 6 feet long by
6-footers.
Right. Well, they have a 6x2x3, 2x2, and then the biggest one I think is 6x3x3. Don't quote me on that. I would have to look. But
they also have the bioactive options with the deeper front lip. So if you wanted to do like deeper substrate for like monitors and stuff that like to dig, you get the deeper option. Which is nifty.
Yeah.
So
and that's a pretty big cage, man. That's hefty. That's hefty.
I would like to move the Jansen eye into something bigger.
6 foot.
Maybe I don't know necessarily if I do 6, but definitely like a 5.
I mean, they're already in 4. You may as well bump that sucker up to 6.
Yeah, you're right.
But
fully deck it out like it is now, and so
keep doing thing.
Right, so blackboxcages.com and Steve Snakesuary and his Venom hot sauce. Get you some. Try that cottonmouth sauce. Try that cottonmouth sauce especially because it is especially delicious.
Sauce so good you want to lick it off your new black box rack.
Oh,
yeah.
Marietta, Georgia, the Show Me Snake Show, March 12th and 13th. Officially, it is happening. I am off work. 4-day weekend.
We going,
and it's gonna be good.
We go be there.
Excited.
Yep.
It'll be just. I'm just excited to be out of town for a little bit.
Yeah. Me too, dude.
hanging
Oh
with
my
people.
god.
Bill Bradley's gonna be there.
Dude, I'm so
Casey
excited.
Cannon's gonna be
We're
there.
staying at the same hotel Bill is staying at, right?
Yeah.
The same one? Oh, man.
Jason Keller's gonna be there.
Oh, yeah. I'm excited to meet
I don't know
Keller,
if
too.
Jeremy Turgeon is going or not.
Oh.
I need to ask if
Oh.
I need to see if Jeremy's gonna be there. He might.
Oh, I didn't know that. That would be cool. I love Jeremy, man. He's a good dude.
I'm sure there's gonna be plenty of other people that we don't know are gonna be there that it will be, but
Yeah.
it'll be fun.
Yeah.
So
say
we'll
hi
be
if you'll be there.
wandering. I hope they have soft pretzels.
Mm-hmm. No, if you see
I'm
it,
like Stanley in the office, man. It's pretzel day.
it's pretzel day. All right, y'all. Thanks for tuning in for episode 153. See you next week.
Snakes and Stogies 110, 111, something like that happening Monday. I know you're trying to leave. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good. I
You're
was
like,
I was just tapping.
Damn it, be done.
No, I was just tapping. Snakes and Stougies, boy.
Snakes and Stogies 110, 111. I think it's 111. Monday night, 9 p.m. EST. We are live. I don't know who we have lined up. Next week for THP, we have the lovely folks from Equatorial Ecosystems coming on. So that'll be cool because he's got a bunch of cool stuff, a lot of dart frogs and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that'll be good.
Cool.
So thank you, everybody.
Have a great night.
See you later.